On the show this week, we take a test drive in Ford's new facelifted EcoSport. And with the holiday season ahead, we take you to a new driving destination.
With the Maruti Vitara Brezza storming the sales charts and the brand new Tata Nexon winning praise and accolades for its design and its great overall package, it's easy to forget the car that started the craze for compact sub-4 meter SUVs in the first place. That's right, I am of course talking about the Ford Ecosport. Now over the years, as the competition mounted, Ford gave it small incremental updates to try and keep it in the game. Now however, it's time for the big one, the mid-life facelift, and I can assure you it's more than just a small nip and tuck. And the thing you're going to notice first is the new face. Gone is the old twin grille look, and in its place a single, more aggressive one that's lined in chrome and resembles the grilles on the Endeavour and even the Mustang to an extent. The headlights are bigger and feature projector elements and a new LED DRL signature, and the indicators have now migrated to the bumper next to the fog lamps. Apart from that, not much has changed on the outside, save for the new alloy wheel designs, both for the 16-inch wheels on this titanium model and the 17-inch ones on the higher spec Titanium Plus. The bigger changes are actually on the inside. So as you can see, a lot has changed on the inside of the Ford EcoSport, and let's start with this steering wheel, which is brand new. It's got some really nice soft leather, so it feels nice to hold. It looks rather contemporary and it's finished very well, especially these control buttons over here. There are new stalks, a new instrument cluster, and of course the brand new center console with this touchscreen front and center, but more on that later. Thanks to all the new additions, there's a lot of new switchgear which is really well made, but I have to say that overall there are still a lot of hard plastics in the cabin, and that's a bit of a shame. Still, you can't argue that all the changes have amounted to an altogether fresher and more modern looking dashboard. The central AC vents have been moved lower down, and below them are AC controls similar to those in the Figo and Aspire. You also get two illuminated USB ports on the dash, a new handbrake and bigger cup holders. Underneath the new armrest is a storage bay, but it's too narrow and too deep to be truly practical. And though the new instrument cluster is neat and easy to read, it just looks a bit too plain, even compared to the old car. But then you get to the touchscreen, which is truly one of the best around. It seems set too far forward, but then you realize it's easier to reach that way. It's bright, slick as a smartphone, and it uses Ford's latest Sync 3 system, which is really well thought out. It does miss out on navigation, but you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Top spec cars are pretty well kitted out too, with things like 7-color ambient lighting, 6 airbags, voice commands, emergency assist, and even a tire pressure monitor. So a lot is new if you're sat in the front seats of the EcoSport, but what about if you want to sit at the back? Now, not a lot has changed in the back seat of the Ford EcoSport, apart from the fact that maybe the seats are a little bit more contoured this time, making them a bit more supportive. As before, you sit quite high up, and the EcoSport makes use of its vertical space to give you room in the back seat. That said, legroom is decent, but it isn't quite as much as a Vitara Brezza or a Tata Nexon, and I suspect it's not as wide either. Headroom is still good and thigh support is excellent. But in case you were wondering, no, Ford hasn't engineered a rear AC vent into the EcoSport. The seats no longer recline either, but instead you can now flip them down much easier with a touch of one button to free up more space in the boot. In fact, the Titanium Plus even lets you flip up the seat squabs and place in a tray to get a completely flat loading space. However, the real big change on the EcoSport, more than the exterior and interior, can be found underneath the bonnet. Now, making its debut under the hood of the updated EcoSport is a brand new 1.5-litre petrol engine codenamed the Dragon. It's closely related to the 1-litre EcoBoost engine, and that means it's very compact and rather state-of-the-art. However, while the EcoBoost motor has an iron block, this one is all aluminium, so it's quite light too. It also has a balancer shaft and roller finger followers to help reduce vibrations and improve refinement. They have left out other expensive bits like the turbocharger and direct injection, but they've still managed to extract a power output that's just 2 horsepower less than the EcoBoost. Therefore, it's a 1.5-litre 3-cylinder naturally aspirated engine that makes 123 horsepower and 150 Newton meters of torque. Now, on paper, that's pretty good for this size of engine, but let's see what it's like out on the road. Right, now what better place to start than with the brand new 1.5-litre Dragon petrol engine. Yes, because this is a 3-cylinder engine, there is a bit of shimmy and shake at startup, but I have to say it settles down to a rather impressive and silent idle. And that's the first thing that impresses you, the refinement. For a 3-cylinder all-aluminium motor, it's really impressively quiet, with very little clatter and only a nice pleasant thrum accompanying the acceleration. Now, of course, this being a naturally aspirated petrol engine, you don't get the same sort of hit you get in the mid-range from the turbocharged EcoBoost engine. But that said, it is quite a big improvement over the old 1.5-litre naturally aspirated engine you used to get in the old EcoSport. And I'm happy to report, unlike some naturally aspirated petrol engines, the bottom end isn't too weak. You actually get enough guts low down at low revs. So even when you're pottering around town at low RPM and a high gear, you don't always have to shift down. It's really quite tractable at low revs. What you get in terms of power delivery is a smooth, consistent pull all the way to the 6,500 RPM redline. There's no sudden spike in power like you might get in some other petrol engines. It doesn't quite have the dual nature of, say, a Honda VTEC motor, but instead it makes up for it by being more tractable more of the time. You don't have to rev the pants off it to extract maximum performance, and that makes it really flexible and easy to drive in all conditions. Now, one thing Fords, including the EcoSport, have always been known for is great dynamics. Great handling that doesn't come at the cost of ride quality, and I'm happy to report it's more of the same over here. The car stays nice and rock solid stable at high speeds out on the highway. You can feel a slight underlying firmness, but it's never really enough to upset the dynamics of the car. And I have to say that this is still one of the best steerings around when it comes to electrically power assisted units on mainstream cars. It's really quick, it's really accurate, and it doesn't rob you of feel even though it's quite light. The upshot of that is when you find yourself some twisty roads, this thing is a lot of fun to chuck around corners. Interestingly, Ford has actually added in a little slack at the straight ahead position compared to the old EcoSport to make it a little less edgy to drive. But this being Ford, it's still sharper to steer than most others. They've also retuned the dampers and made them a little softer, which was necessary as the old car was a bit too firm. But again, this hasn't been enough to put a dampener on the EcoSport's handling prowess. I also have to say the seats in the front are a lot more comfy this time around. Ford has listened to feedback and made them wider and better suited to larger frames. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily apply to me, but in the process the seats have got a lot more comfortable, and you'll enjoy that on a long journey. And of course, the EcoSport's old bugbears also remain, most notably visibility. Thanks to this thick A-pillar and some rather thick C-pillars, you do have to learn your way around this car. And that's the thing about the EcoSport. There's a lot that's new, but also a lot that's familiar. You will still be able to get it with a diesel engine and with an automatic gearbox on this 1.5 petrol, so expect reviews of those versions to come soon. Yes, the new motor is definitely the highlight of this car. It's smooth, it's refined, and it makes driving in any condition very easy. That, paired with Ford's excellently honed dynamics, makes this a superb driver's car. Then there's the new look at the front and the revised interior with that superb touchscreen that really make it feel modern and up to date. It should remain competitively priced too, in order to properly take on the Nexon and Vitara Brezza. And when you package that all together, it's clear the EcoSport is geared up to make a big comeback.
Thank you.
You welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I need that to cool me down. It's destination Dubai this time, and I'm in the beautiful location of the Al Maidan Hotel, sitting out on the patio and getting this beautiful view of the racecourse. Now, of course, the racing season is between November and March, when it's much cooler here in Dubai. Well, these kind of horses for some, and different kind of horsepower for us here at Autocar, and we're off to explore destination Dubai, and I believe I have a very interesting car lined up for me today. While Hormuz was picking out the right car for our day in the desert, I got to see what the high life is like. I got to visit the opulent presidential suite at the Al Maidan Hotel with its spacious living quarters and fabulous views of the racecourse. With the start-finish line in plain sight means you can watch everything right from your room. With every luxury at hand, it is the life of royalty. And blue-blooded you would have to be to access the 1,40,000 rupee a night room. But Dubai is like that. It's a city that can give you every luxury like few others. Opulence was all around me, and I was happy to be inside the cool AC environment of the hotel. I was hoping that whichever car Hormuz was bringing would keep me just as cool with the sweltering 45-degree heat outside and a day in the desert ahead. Perfect. What a choice for the day.
Yep, hardcore off-roader.
Yep.
Perfect for the sand dunes.
Absolutely. Let's go hit the desert.
Yeah, let's go hit the desert.
As we drove down the fantastically wide roads of Dubai with towering high-rises and mirrored buildings on each side, it was difficult to believe that we're actually in a desert. But less than half an hour of a smooth, easy drive, it became easier to believe. Suddenly, the buildings tapered out and wide, vast, empty expanses of sand were all around us. Our guide took a sharp turn and into the sand we went. Wow, this place is fabulous. This is Al Qudra. Where's he going? I think the dune bug has definitely bitten him. Hormuz is off to hit the dunes. But where we've come is Al Qudra Lakes. This is a getaway. This is where people come to have a break from the city. They come and have picnics here. Of course, we're crazy and we're here in the middle of the day. But it's generally evening time and in winter when people come here and barbecue, and it's an escape spot from Dubai city.
Now, when in Dubai, you cannot not drive in the sand. Oh boy, this is really fun. Now, the thing about driving in the sand is that it is really quite slippery. The sand tries to suck you down, suck you in, so the key really is to keep the momentum. Don't lose speed. Woo! Oh boy. Yeah, and this is amazing the way this Wrangler just claws through all that sand. I mean, it's a Jeep after all. They invented off-roading.
Oh, thank you for stopping that and letting me get back in the car. It is baking outside.
Yeah, it is really hot, but...
Thank God for this AC.
Okay, back on the highway. I'm just going to put it into two-wheel drive. That means neutral first, and there we go. Simple. forgotten what it's like to drive a lusty petrol like this V6, because all our cars are all diesel. So they sell this in India in petrol form, but I don't think too many numbers. But yeah, it's really, really good fun.
I can see you really enjoyed that.
What is the speed limit here? Is it
100, but you can go to about 120 without really having a problem.
Are you going to sponsor my fine?
No, that's what the guy told me.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm not taking no responsibility for it. The roads are so wide, you can land an Airbus on them. There are literally 7 lanes on each side and barely any cars. It's just so tempting when you have the power to enjoy these empty open stretches. But remember, in Dubai, enforcement is strict and cameras are everywhere. So despite these empty open stretches of road, everyone does keep within the prescribed limit. With the pristine roads and no traffic, we hit the last exit in no time at all. The last exit is a pit stop for all those that head out into the desert and carries the feel of a trucker's stop. As the sun went down a little, we headed off into the desert to hit the real dunes. The guide was shooting out instructions at manic pace. Rule 1, drop the tire pressures as low as 15 to 16 psi. After having done that, follow my tracks strictly. Do not deviate. Well, that's exactly what we did. And what a fun ride it was. Yeah, right for me, because Hormuz was having so much fun, he refused to let go of the wheel. Powering up 50-degree slopes 4 stories high with banks of sand and just the sky filling your windscreen, and then dropping down on the other side, wheels momentarily in the air. It was a real adrenaline rush. The best bit was there was nothing to really damage the car as the sand is so soft, so we were just not worried. The only time it got really hairy was when we went sideways across a steep dune. The angles are precariously close to roll over and I was hanging on for dear life. Yep, it's best to charge straight up or down a dune is what Hormuz soon discovered, thankfully. Hormuz was really having a blast, but even being in the passenger seat is bucket loads of fun. Dune bashing is great fun, but driving in sand is a fine art. So no matter how good your car is, it's best not to get overconfident, is what we found out. To get out of there, we tried it all. Reverse, forward, gentle throttle, but we just kept sinking in further. Thankfully in Dubai, they're always prepared for the worst and the guide whipped out a pair of sand channels and in no time, we were out. Golden sand as far as the eye can see just makes you feel so insignificant and so small, makes you realize how vast the earth really is. Well, we had some great times in the dunes and Hormuz was really going for it until we decided to stop in some soft sand. Silly mistake, but we got ourselves beached a bit and then we got ourselves out, so thankfully we're now headed to dinner. evening wound up at the high-end Bab el Shams resort that's tucked away in the middle of the desert. But there's nothing desolate about the place. It was buzzing with activity and there was a full feast on. The wonderful food is fit for a king, and there were delicacies like slow-cooked chicken that sits underground for hours and the golden lukamat that's a dumpling dripping with date sauce. There's loads of entertainment too, and the whirling dervish that rotated for what was like half an hour left me dizzy with the delights of a wonderful day in a wonderful land.